Are these KCSE exams set by Kenyan teachers for Kenyan students following the Kenyan school syllabus? That is the question, and I thought I will share this question with you, my viewers, because I'm a bit troubled. The results for the Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education, or KCSE as we call it, for the year 2021 were announced last week. These results where more than 80% get below C+, the pass mark for university, have a long story to tell. And this got me to ask, are these exams really set for Kenyan students by Kenyan teachers for people who went through the same school system? Are they set following the Kenyan syllabus that was taught during the 4 years? Is it really reasonable to have 80% of students come out without knowing what was taught for the 4 years? And some have to go to Uganda and other systems to take the exam and get a second evaluation. And guess what? Many perform better. Is this normal? Is it okay? You'd almost think that some other people come from elsewhere and set these exams so that our Kenyan children from majority of the Kenyan normal schools are just sitting an exam that no one from the normal schools understands, not even their teachers. Because if these exams are based on what has been taught in the last 4 years in all schools, it would be unlikely that this funnel, it's like a funnel that churns out 80%. If you were to think about a business, because I come from the business world, then you are a manufacturer and you are producing products and 80% go wrong, what kind of business would you have? And that's a question. What kind of a country do we have? Are we going to have? What kind of economy are we going to create if 80% come out of the funnel on the other end and only 20% or less are considered even good enough? If 80% of our own Kenyans cannot pass our own Kenyan exams set in this country by our own teachers and marked by our own Kenyan teachers, it's a great commentary on our society and it's a great commentary on where this country is going and what we actually think education is all about. I was thinking about how I saw the media look at these results. They spent 1 or 2 days talking about the results, summary, statistics, talking about the percentages, and then they left it there. A few asked a few questions, but then they left it there. They then moved to individual schools, and especially those that have performed well. Started just celebrating the winners and the people who have passed. That's good, we should celebrate the winners, but we need to ask reflective questions. What does it mean that 80% fail? No one is talking about this group that have been cut off by the funnel, the huge number who have been locked out. And now the focus has shifted even to those that have had 100% transition. The headlines are shouting, Kapsabet school tops. And they go on to say that all 461 students who sat 2021 KCSE at Kapsabet High qualified to university. First, a massive congratulations to the Kapsabet students and their teachers. But what does this tell us? Either the schools are taught by different kind of people or are different, or that some people know the syllabus and others not, but something is not adding up. And I would wish the media would go out there and look at a school where no one passed, and then we start to understand what kind of schools are these. What is this thing that is dividing the schools to such an extent? Can we be able to go back and look at these schools and see what's the difference? What is the difference between the teachers who taught at Kapsabet, at Kenya High School, at Alliance, at Mangu High School? What is the difference between these teachers? What is the difference between the school facilities? What is the difference? Are we comparing like for like? And because we know in Kenya we have a lot of regional differences and that we have some very, very poor schools. Like if you remember, even the teacher, where the famous teacher Tabiti, the one who won the best teacher in the world, was teaching in a school that had only one computer, that had no internet connection and all that. But we need to understand the limits because something is not right. Of course, all parents would want their children to go to these schools that have everybody passing. But these schools are just a few. Back to the question of the day. We need now to focus on the majority who have been left out in this funnel. I picture that funnel where that 80% are out and the 20% are in, are good. And I just wonder whether that is a viable proposition. We might think we are competing with ourselves because we have done this thing for the last 5 years or so now, where we have all the people, basically 80% out, or more than 80% failing. We think we are competing with ourselves, but we are competing in a global economy. And the question is, how will Kenyans of this generation participate in the digital economy? How will they participate in the global economy of robotics, artificial intelligence, mechatronics, and the Internet of Things? How will Kenya feature in the future? What percentage of Kenyans will be able to operate in that world? The way it looks, many have been locked out of the future world of cool jobs. When our beloved President Kibaki, God rest his soul in peace, when President Kibaki opened up education in Kenya and raised the discussion about transition from primary to secondary, he also created another level. He created many universities because he had a vision of the next level transition. He believed that these numbers coming out of secondary school will have more numbers also going into university. Now the universities expanded because of that reasoning, and new ones were given charters. Even in this current government, they have given many new charters to universities, and more universities have been coming up. But today, there are not enough people to occupy those opportunities, those seats created in our universities. Today, universities don't have enough students to teach. They don't have enough students to occupy that capacity that was created. And the number one reason is that the majority of the people who are anticipated, because they transited from primary to secondary, did not make it, could not transit to the next level. And you come to a point where you ask a question: what kind of philosophy of education are we following? Is it that Kenyans have become incapable of learning or more difficult to teach? Or could it be that the large classes have created this impact? I don't know. I'm just asking questions. I am just troubled by the outcome. I've just become troubled by wondering, where are we going as a country? Where are our children going to go? What is going to happen to the majority? Because if we create a country where we sieve so many out, even those who are sieved in will not live in a peaceful world. Because this other group of 80% will be able to dominate this country. They will dominate because they have the numbers. They will vote who they want. They will create a world that is more suitable to that group than to this other group. And it can also become a problem in terms of how people live together, creating exclusivity, not inclusivity. We have now gone back to the old days when only a few entered university. The government in those days used to pay for all who entered university. And they were fed sausages and eggs for breakfast. So because of that, the cutoff marks to university was based on what the government could afford, the number they could afford to keep at a very high class level in university, feeding them sausages and Swiss rolls as, for dessert. But even then, the pass rate was better in terms of percentage. Those who couldn't be admitted to university but were able to get that C+, were still more than the 20% of today, and would be able to go to universities in India and elsewhere because they had the mark. All they needed was to find another place. But today, actually, the majority are just failing in such a massive way. What kind of situation has this created? More than 500,000 have failed each year for the last 5 years. Nearly 3 million Ds and E students have been released. We now have over 3 million young new voters who belong to this D and E category based on the KCSE results. Ask yourself, how will these D and E students vote? And how should they vote anyway? You've already given them their voting behavior. You've defined it as a society. We've created that definition. And I ask again, how will our society grow? Is the school system actually delivering value for this society? Then you go back to the budget and you ask, the government spends over 40% of our budget on education. Are we getting value for money? If people who go to our schools come out without knowing what was being taught in school, can the teachers be really proud and say that they deliver value themselves? Can the government really be proud and say that they provided the relevant environment, the relevant institutional framework for children to learn? Because if the Kenyan exam set by Kenyan teachers, who are the same teachers who teach the students, following the Kenyan syllabus, can lead to an 80% churn, something is not right. How can we expect education to inculcate the values we want to champion as Kenyans if it cannot help the student come out knowing what was being taught? Another thing is that only a few Kenyans can compete for regional scholarships these days. The regional scholarships meant for East African region are all ending up in Uganda, Tanzania, South Sudan, and the like, because Kenyans don't have enough people to compete for these scholarships. The majority of them do not get A's as Oscars in Kenya, and I just ask you to check in Uganda, Tanzania, South Sudan, find whether their students do not get A's. So if you go and compete for those scholarships, in fact, Kenya is lucky we have wings to fly, but now after that, all the regional and international scholarships for Africa that you are supposed to compete from your country, you cannot easily compete with the kind of grades that Kenyans get. The numbers are too few to be able to compete for these significant scholarships. And the question is, how can this be changed? And even Kenyan universities will start looking for students from the region in the countries where large numbers pass, where larger numbers get the A's and the B's and the C's. Already, the numbers can be seen increasing, the numbers of foreign students in our universities. We have great capacity, and we are going to start exporting education as a service to the countries in our region where students pass their secondary. I have no answer to all these issues. I have no answer to these questions. I'm just troubled. And I wonder, if we care about the youth, as we keep saying, if we indeed care about the youth, how can we not talk about these things? How can we not ask these questions about where the majority will go after this transition from secondary school with these devastating KCSE results? And what does this mean for the future of Kenya, where the world is moving to Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, robotics, and mechatronics, and the like? A significant budget needs to be availed by this same government to cater for the transition of the 80% to the world of work. Because we can't stop at the results. We have to ask, where will they go? Who will carry them forward? So because they cannot go to this other level, it doesn't mean that's the end of focus. We have to create an answer to this question. We need to find out what to do to serve these people so they can also participate in the future of a global economy and represent Kenya effectively. I have no answers to these questions. I am just a troubled Kenyan. For me, it's food for thought to you. Thank you for staying with me. All the best. That was an unusual topic. That's not what I normally talk about, but I just feel troubled. Thank you.